one of the things I really wanted to look at was the experience of Christians in Damascus. You know, Christians are still free to worship.
One of the big attributes of Ibn Taymiyyah's whole narrative is that we should use the words that the Quran used or the Sunnah used.
Some Salafis I know will say Sufism is bid'ah, it's haram. That is not what Ibn Taymiyyah said. He said some Sufis are fine if they operate within the divine law, but some are not when they go to excess.
I do believe that we need to improve on that front, just generally, as an ummah, on the spirituality front.
Absolutely
reciting the Quran much more, doing dhikr much more of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's true to say I saw some shocking poverty, truly awful. That is because the country has been civil war for over
many
10 years. The country really needs economic revitalization. One thing I am very perhaps clear on is the sense of hope.
I feel that sometimes as Muslims, we could portray ourselves much better, right? In some of the Muslim areas in London, for example, we could portray ourselves much better. I think that does make a difference. You know, one of the things that makes your work weak academically is that you don't understand the issue you're discussing, right? But when you understand the issue you're discussing, that's one of the things that's going to give you credibility, academically speaking, and it's going to allow your work to spread further.
المجلس مع موسى عدنان.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to another episode of the al-Majlis podcast. Today in the Majlis, we have joining us a very special guest, mashallah. I'll be honest, I thought that it's going to be much harder to get hold of you.
No. As soon as I heard you invited me, I was very honoured and I said yes straight away.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Mashallah,
you.
we have with
Very
us
honoured
our
to be here.
brother, Paul Williams, from Blogging Theology. Mashallah, you guys will know him. You'll know his channel. You must have seen some of his videos, your reels, your shorts, all of your work, mashallah. Amazing stuff that you're doing.
Alhamdulillah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very well, thank you. Despite the fact that it's miserable, grey, dark, horrible outside in London, indoors here with the lights and the brothers, it's very nice, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to have you in the Majlis. I've actually known you for many, many years now. You've been a friend of my father's for
Absolutely.
quite a long time.
Your father's a great man.
You probably remember me from when I was a child, right? MashaAllah. So it's a pleasure to have you in the Majlis to have a hopefully fruitful conversation. We probably will be touching on some controversial stuff.
Absolutely. If I'm here, it's sure to be the case.
Let's get straight into it. I mean, today is the 9th of December, and 1 year ago, yesterday.
Ah, right, yeah. Okay.
We had.
I know where you're going. Yeah.
We had the Fath of Sham, Bilad al-Sham, Syria, to be exact. We saw the essential, fall of Bashar al-Assad, his regime and everything, and we saw a new government come into Syria. Recently, you were actually there in Syria, right? How long ago were you in Syria?
Oh, it was a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago only, subhanAllah. Yeah. I want to speak about your experience. How did you find it on a general level? Obviously, you may have had certain perceptions going in, perhaps. How did you find the whole experience?
Well, I had rather uncharitable expectations. I said jokingly to friends, how much could they raise in ransom if I was kidnapped by people? And
oh my God.
I wasn't kidnapped, but in fact, when I got there to Damascus, it's a very safe place now. Probably safer than London or New York. At least I got that sense from the population. But I was invited to a conference at the University of Damascus to give a talk, along with 40 scholars, and most of whom were from Turkey and some Syria, some from America and Europe. And so I was the odd one out because they invited me as well. But it was funny when I arrived in Damascus via Istanbul. I expected normally you're taken to the hotel. In fact, I was itching to go to the hotel because I'd been up all night traveling.
Yeah.
But it wasn't possible for reasons which never became quite clear to go to the hotel immediately. So we were taken on this guided tour of of Damascus, on the outskirts of Damascus. So we all got on this coach from the airport, all these scholars, about 40 odd people, and we were driven through, I guess, some suburbs of Damascus and just outside, which had been completely decimated by Assad and his forces and the Russians as well. And it was absolutely shocking. And we just drove through it, and occasionally we stopped and we were, we got out and we filmed it and just experienced this extraordinary desolation. Yeah. And it reminded me of that footage of Berlin in 1945 after the Allies had finished bombing the hell out of the place, where you just saw these skeleton buildings left and vast, vast areas of the city of Berlin. And it's just like that in areas around Damascus.
Yeah.
And that was tradition. I'd never been into a war zone before in my life, apart from some bits of London, but not a serious war zone. I'm not going to say which bits, but where it actually been deliberately targeted by the government, where civilian populations had been targeted. Hundreds of thousands of people were slaughtered by that evil man. So that was my initial impression. And then we went to other places. We did end up in the hotel in the end. But most of central Damascus, if not all of it, is actually fine. It hasn't been targeted, apart from one building, the Ministry of Defence building, a modern building, a glass building, like a modern building you see in London. And in the centre of it, right in the middle, was a big gash. And it turned out this is where the Israelis had bombed a couple of months ago. They targeted
on
with
the
one of their
roundabout
missiles. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been there, obviously.
No, I haven't been. But I saw the video.
Yeah. And so this Israeli missile attacked that deliberately a few months ago.
Yes.
So it's ironic that the only damage, as far as I'm aware, that's been done in central Damascus was by the Israelis, not by Assad, because it was his stronghold, Damascus. On the mountain. It's surrounded by mountains. You can see his palace.
Yeah.
And that remains intact.
I mean, I really want to spend some time speaking about Syria because for me, obviously, some of the scholars that I'm very much, I'm moved by their biographies and, their works, amongst them Ibn Taymiyyah, and Nawawi, and many of these other scholars, Ibn Qayyim, Ibn Kathir, many of them were based in this area, right, within Syria, within Bilad al-Sham, right? And Al-Jami al-Umawi, for example, the masjid, which I'm sure you visited and spent time in, we can speak about that, a very central location in Islamic history, Ibn Taymiyyah himself,
I visited his grave. He's there in the Sufi cemetery.
Yeah. It's in Bab al-Saghir?
I'm not exactly sure, but it's actually within the campus of the University of Damascus, of all places.
Okay.
And Ibn Kathir's grave, and one other scholar, I don't remember, is also there. But they're isolated. They're not in any proper area for where you can go and pay your respect. You're kind of tucked away in a corner in an administrative block. It's not in any way given any kind of status. So that may be appropriate, by the way. But we did go and visit the grave.
I saw the photo that you posted of it, and as I was saying, like it's such a big thing for me personally, and even when I was doing my masters, one of the professors that I had the pleasure of actually studying with was Professor Hugh Kennedy, who I'm sure you're very aware of. And he was mentioning to us within his module, I remember he was mentioning about Ghouta, right, which is on the outskirts of Damascus. And he was mentioning that he was there in the 60s, and we were like, I was personally like very surprised that he had been to, Syria, and he was talking about how it was and his experience and stuff. And obviously at the time when I was doing this, Syria seemed like such a distant place, like it's not going to be possible to go there anytime soon. And now so quickly things change, right?
They are.
So like you mentioned some of your initial impressions. How long did you spend there?
In total 5 days, including going there on that day and leaving on another day.
And you stayed within Damascus?
Yeah. I just stayed in a hotel in central Damascus with all the other delegates, basically.
Okay, nice. How was Al-Jami al-Umawi, the Masjid, the Umayyad Mosque? How did you find that?
Amazing. Again, we were taken that night, the first day, to the mosque, and it was strangely empty. And one of my friend, Dr. Jan Islam, who's a professor in university in Istanbul, who was there, he said, we've been given a special permit to visit, and the place was completely closed.
Wow.
So we were allowed to visit on our own, and we were shown various rooms and shrines and whatnot and everything at night, and it was all lit up. So that was absolutely amazing. I went the following day. Obviously, it was daylight, and it looked completely different. It's amazing how the light changes everything.
Yeah.
But no, it's an extraordinary place. I mean, there's too much history to begin to recount associated with that particular masjid. There's the tomb of Salahuddin there, which I visited.
Yes.
Now, that had a lot of people, huge crowds. Ibn Taymiyyah's had no one. I think it's because it was tucked away. It's not in the mosque.
Okay.
But Salahuddin is given great prominence, and he's a great hero.
Of course,
Great hero.
Significant figure in Islamic history.
Very,
And So, I mean, tell us about some of your experiences. Like, how was the food? I mean, some of that, I know very trivial things, but people are going to be wondering, like, how was the food? As someone coming from the West, how did you find the lifestyle there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Damascus or Syria. I still don't know. I was only there as a guest, and we were looked after. So the whole thing was managed by, academics and people, various organizations and airlines sponsored it. So it wasn't a typical private holiday at all.
Yes.
So we were put in a coach and we went off to a particular restaurant, which was very nice, and we were kind of fed and watered there, and it was, and it was all very carefully managed. We weren't forced. It's not like being in the Soviet Union where you had to do things. No, we were free to do what we wanted. But
yeah, but they looked after you.
No, they looked after us. So I can't comment on. It's true to say I saw some shocking poverty, truly awful and unspeakable, actually, and that is because the country has been civil war for many 10 years, and is under some very severe sanctions from the West, particularly the US. Now those are ending. It's a process. Things had to be passed by Congress. Laws had to change, but economic prosperity badly needs to come back. The country really needs economic revitalization. And one thing I am very perhaps clear on is the sense of hope there is there now.
Did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great sense of they can finally move forward and bring growth and stability and prosperity and to that country, which has had such awful recent past. So I left feeling very optimistic, actually. I'm very, very pleased with the people who are the rulers there, the people who are in charge. Certainly appear to me to be, for what I saw, to be good Sunni Muslims. So they want the best, they want justice, they want to bring, good for the people, which wasn't the case before with the previous people. So, but there are huge challenges from the Kurds in the northeast, challenges from the Israelis in the south, challenges from on the coast with other Shia sects and whatever. So the country is not really unified at the moment as a whole, I mean. So the big challenges.
Did you feel that though? Did you feel that sense of that it's not unified, or?
Well, I was told it wasn't. I was told about the Kurds. I was told about the Alawites or something on the east, on the west coast and so on.
Yeah.
So I mean, I didn't go and visit these places. I don't really want to go and visit those places. But
you don't really feel that in Damascus, would you? say?
No. I mean, ISIS is still active, although
really,
up north somewhere. But they're very small and they're an irritant. But recently, they are active. Actually, so both the US and the Syrians are after them. And they've got to be stopped. They're just vicious, horrible people.
Of course, yeah. SubhanAllah. And you mentioned that you went through Istanbul. So like on your way coming back, I mean, you don't have to answer this question in any detail, but I'm just being, it's the Majlis, so I'm just going to ask you what's coming to my head.
No, I wasn't stopped.
You wasn't?
Is that what you're going to ask?
I was going to ask.
Really? This wasn't pre-planned. I had no idea what you're going to ask. No. There's a simple rule, which probably will break now, but next time I travel, is that if you're a white guy with a name like mine, you don't get stopped. But
I mean, if I went, I would probably have been Section 7 and Schedule 7 or whatever it's called.
No,
right?
there's a serious point here. For a long time,
Yeah.
And this is about race and being white in the West, I for most of my life, I really used to mock the idea of white privilege. I know there's hilarity in the back, people are laughing in the background, which is true. But when I became a Muslim and I started traveling with brothers who are not white all over the place around the world, boy, did I learn the joys of white privilege. I mean, it really is absolutely true. We used to play this game, how long would it take me to get through passport control? I had it down to about 3 seconds when I went to LA once, whoosh, and my friend who has exactly the same background, well, I'll see you in an hour or so, and it was awful. This always happened.
I mean, I must say that mashallah, your accent and only makes it better. I mean, your accent would only help. Right?
Well, I was always, because I've been to the States, 3 times this year, and every time I think, am I going to get in? Am I going to get in? And every time it's like whoosh straight through. Now, that may not be the case next time, but I'm not complacent, by the way, because the powers that be in the States are somewhat unpredictable. But so far, there's definitely white privilege.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I mean, but at the same time, mashallah, you if I can say, you are using that white privilege to benefit people and
Well, not
actually.
consciously. I don't think, I will use my privilege today to bash the kuffar.
Oh my God.
Not quite how I see it. No, I'm not aware of. I'm aware of it when we speak of it, but it's not
Yeah.
something I deliberately trade on.
Yeah.
I just do my stuff.
How was your experience? You spoke at a university, right? Was it the University of
Damascus. Yeah. No, it was amazing actually.
Did you get a chance to speak with some of the students and?
Students? Well, a lot of the people in the audience were like government ministers, and
Oh, really?
it was very high profile.
Okay.
Oh, no, seriously high profile. No, there were I met some of the students. Yeah, but it wasn't just that. It was the biggest event of its kind ever in Syria's history.
What was
I
like
was
the
told.
purpose of the event?
Well, it was what was it really? It was a gathering of these scholars from all over the place in this. It's never been that big. That was what the uniqueness of it. And we were talking about all sorts of things. I talked about the relationship between the synoptic gospels and Muhammad in the Quran, and a lot of it was interfaith. A lot of it was looking at the world from Syria's challenges and so on. All sorts of different subjects.
Yeah.
Very eclectic in that sense.
Amazing. Okay, mashallah.
Yeah.
There's obviously another topic that I wanted to speak about Syria. We had to because it's such a significant thing, right? And
Can I have one thing about Syria? I forgot.
Yeah,
Well,
please.
One of the things I really wanted to look at, just from my own knowledge, was the experience of Christians in Damascus. And so I made that known that I was very interested in visiting areas where the churches were, and I was taken to them. And I remember at 7:30 in the morning before we went off, there were very loud church bells ringing, and I was in central Damascus, and church bells pealing very loudly and naturally for like half an hour as far as I could see, and then we went to visit some of these churches, and the Christians clearly are well off, or have been well off in Syria. The churches are very nice, very clean, open for worship and so on. So I just wanted to state that under the new rulership of Syria, Christians are still free to worship in their churches. Just want to put that on the record.
Going back to actually, there is something I wanted to speak about a little bit more with you on Syria, which is Ibn Taymiyyah.
Yeah.
Right? As far as I understand, even one of the brothers has mentioned to me as well that you are very fond of Ibn Taymiyyah's work and Ibn Taymiyyah as a figure. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, but it's not. What happened was I actually read a couple of doctorates about him from two people. And I actually just naturally grew to appreciate the genius of that man, and he's a polymath. And once I began to understand his epistemology, for example, I thought, wow, this guy is extraordinary. And I just had a natural appreciation, as many people do, if they can overcome certain issues of his work. It doesn't mean I think he's infallible. I don't.
Of course.
But I think he is a titan, a great genius of the Ummah. And also I think that his thought is very much relevant to today's world, perhaps more than it ever was, actually. So his time has come, and that's why he's so popular. He really speaks to our modern world. So in that sense, I'm a fan, but I'm not I'm not a disciple or something like that. I just think he's a great thinker that we can benefit from, actually. And he's playing his role posthumously after 700 years in revitalizing the intellectual life of the Ummah in many ways. So please sit up. Okay. Is there anything else?
There's a producer getting involved there, mashallah. In the most subtle way possible.
It was very subtle. I shouldn't have said anything, should I? I should have just looked and gone, oh, okay.
I want to unpack some of the stuff that you just said there. Like you mentioned that, especially in this day and age, some of his thought being relevant and stuff. What exactly are you referring to there when you say that?
Well, there are lots of things. I think his great stress on going back to the original sources of Islam, Quran and Sunnah. I mean, in his day, his adversaries were, some Ash'arites, some Maturidis, some Sufis, and so on. But his emphasis was always about, the extra bits that have been added into it, the Hellenistic philosophy, the some certain practices and so on. We need
External influences.
external influences. We need to really go back to the pure sources of that, and I think that's relevant today because the pressure is very much for us to mix Islam with modernity in many ways, liberalism or all sorts of ideologies, and we must resist that. I don't mean in a reactionary way, but in a way saying, well, no, Islam has its own epistemology and so on, and we must focus on that rather than simply accepting ideas and ideologies because they're popular or from the West or something. So that stress on the purity of faith is actually very relevant, I think.
Yes, and that was a large part of Ibn Taymiyyah's whole.
But there's something else. Sorry, but just add one of the things that he was really, really good at, and that not many Muslims are very good at. I've learned is he understood his enemies, his opponents, really well. He read their stuff. He didn't straw man it.
Yes.
He sometimes even steel manned it. He really understood it inside. So when he critiqued them, he was coming and he wasn't unfair to them. He didn't straw man them.
Yes.
And this is a fantastic ability to have. And it's so easy, isn't it, when we're at Speaker's Corner, for example, just to distort the opponent's views, just to slight ridicule them, to make them more easy to refute, which of course not really fair. But he was a great example of, and his opponents, and I've read some of his opponents actually respected him for that. They didn't he didn't misrepresent them, and that's a rare gift, and that's something again we can learn from him.
And I think his understanding of the opposing view is actually one of the attributes, or one of the things that made his work, spread far and wide. I think that is one of the things. When your work is weak academically in that sense, one of the things that makes your work weak academically is that you don't understand the opposing. You don't understand the issue you're discussing, right? Yeah. But when you understand the issue you're discussing, that's one of the things that's going to give you credibility, academically speaking, and it's going to allow your work to spread further. So that is one of the things, and obviously, even on some of the things that people would disagree with Ibn Taymiyyah on from other groups, like you mentioned, some of the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya, etc., on his Aqidah, for example, his creed, right?
Well, that's the other reason, by the way. His creed, call it what you want, the Athari creed or whatever. Yeah, this is the original creed of Islam, of the Sahaba. Another reason why we should look to that, because the something I've learned, the Ash'ari creed came much later in time, and it largely was successful for political reasons. Yes, to do with certain rulers imposing. Well, we'll go into the details. Yeah. So this is interesting actually, and it tells us a lot about the correct understanding, I think. Yeah,
even during Ibn Taymiyyah's time, I mean, the leading group of people were the Mamluks, right? The Mamluks were the rulers at the time in Bilad al-Sham and in Egypt, and many of the scholars, in fact, perhaps the majority of the scholars during that period, under the Mamluks, were from that leaning, right? They were from the Ash'ari background. So this is one of the challenges Ibn Taymiyyah was dealing with. But like even if you go back to on a creed level, there are certain things that Ibn Taymiyyah, there's certain words. For example, he in his Wasitiyya, for example, he doesn't use the word tamthil. He doesn't discuss tamthil. He doesn't use the word tashbih, which is a very common word that's used in discussing Aqidah, etc. He may have discussed it in his other works, but he uses the word tamthil, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not to be discussed. There is no one like him, and he uses the word tamthil. And the reason why he uses that word is because that's the word that the Quran uses. So one of the big attributes of Ibn Taymiyyah's whole narrative is that we should use the words that the Quran used. Or the Sunnah used, right? And these words, other words, for example, within these conversations, when people bring in other words like jism and other words, when you go into Aqidah, Ibn Taymiyyah, one of his things is that, well, this word isn't in the Quran or the Sunnah. So what exactly do you mean by this word? Right, going very detailed in that regard. So being very, very specific. Is that one of the reasons why you wanted to visit his grave and see? And
No,
see his grave?
I would have. To be honest, it's not the only grave I would have visited had there been
Of
other
course,
people. But no, because I respect the man as a Muslim, as a genius, and his influence has grown hugely in the last couple of 100 years. I think, in my view, it's your turn to sit down.
I got that.
To be more controversial, there are Muslims, Salafi brothers, some of whom are friends of mine, who I don't always think correctly understand him, and I think he can be misunderstood
I agree.
by his more enthusiastic disciples today, in very controversial areas. For example, his views on Sufism are quite nuanced. So some Salafis I know will say Sufism is bid'ah, it's haram. Sufism just is wrong. And that is not what Ibn Taymiyyah said. And I've read what he said. He said, well, some Sufis are fine if they operate within the divine law, but some are not when they go into excess. And this is a nuanced position, and is appropriate for a scholar to have, actually. But not all of his followers, alleged followers, have that nuance.
And perhaps one of the things that causes this is also the evolution of the word. You see, now we have a very specific perception of what Sufism is. And I mean, if someone refers to Sufism as, for example, tazkiyah and purifying yourself, purifying the nafs,
which is Taymiyyah would approve of that,
right? Of course, Ibn Taymiyyah would have no problem with that, right?
But can't we? This is the response I hear from Salafis who say that to me. Oh well, the term has now become so identified with. Well, I would say, well, can't we introduce nuance still?
Of course.
And why do we have to be just following the bad practice? Why can't we say, well, Sufism actually is a whole bunch of different things, depending on the person. Some of it's not good, some of it's good. Why not speak like that?
I think on the topic of Sufism, one of the things that happens is that, I mean, I don't know historically. I haven't done research on this specific issue historically. Like, has it always been like this? But
no, it hasn't.
Currently,
it did change.
Currently, at least, when someone says the word Sufi, there are specific connotations that come into the minds of not just Salafi Muslims. I believe all Muslims, right? There are specific connotations.
Does it depend on the person? If you say the word Sufi in California, then you're going to have certain bizarre associations with misinterpretations of Rumi. The way Rumi has been mistranslated, and basically the Islam in Rumi has been taken out in Western translations like Coleman Barks and whatever. The travesty. That Sufism is nothing to do with Islam at all. But Rumi himself, Rumi was a Sufi, but it turns out he was a jurist. He wasn't a perennialist. He obeyed the Sharia. And some of these views attributed to him in his translations are completely missing from the original. So this is why I want to introduce complexity in this rather than simple black or white.
I mean, approaching things with detail and complexity and nuance is always the best approach. However, unfortunately, the way that many people work, especially I would argue the majority of people, especially, you're on social media, you know how it is, right? The majority of people who are listening to us, perhaps, sometimes, especially social media, the way social media is, the TikTok generation, Instagram Reels generation has made it that things are given in sound bites and complexity as a result and nuanced conversations.
We must push back against that.
And we must push back against it. It's true.
Because it's not just this issue, it's any issue to do with anything of gravitas in life will be simplified and to the point of triviality.
We must encourage each other to go back to that. And on the topic of Sufism, as we're mentioning, Sufism, which is in line with the Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you want to call Sufism, for example, doing dhikr of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in light of the prophetic
early generations
tradition,
who practiced what we might call, Sufism, but that's fine. But as it developed much later and went off the rails, and for some, then we must call that out. But I don't see why we can't do that.
I think you know what's happened over time. Certain titles, certain words have got, as certain people have as well, right? Have got certain connotations around them. And these connotations sometimes make it difficult for people to, especially your average lay Muslim, to remove the connotation surrounding the specific topic from the topic.
This is true, but
Right.
I think we must push back because the word caliphate, for example,
Yeah.
in the West usually has associations with ISIS, terrorism, evil. You know,
We must
it
push
must
back
be.
on that,
We must absolutely fight against the caliphate because obviously it's just awful. Now, that's not my view, of course, but a proper view, one informed by Sunni scholarship, it will have a very, very different view.
Of course.
This
Yeah.
is the classical view of rulership in Islam,
Mhm.
and the caliphate is a positive good, and it's fard, and we must. So, but will we stop using that word because on TikTok or in the Daily Mail or Fox News they use this term in a very negative way? I don't think so. I think we should try and reclaim the narrative,
Yeah.
re-express this in a positive way with positive content and meaning, and not let the enemies of Islam define what it is to be Muslim in this way.
So you're saying that essentially some of those people who are fond of Ibn Taymiyyah and like to read his works, etc., and perhaps even come from the Athari background, should, in a way, reclaim Sufism. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. It's no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying anyone should be Sufi. By the way, this is absolutely not what I'm saying.
But if you see, if I
I'm
was
not
to ask,
saying that.
if I was to
I'm
ask you on that,
I'm simply saying that
Yeah.
Ibn Taymiyyah was nuanced and complex. As
sure.
befits a polymath,
Yeah.
and that's not always reflected on
Yeah.
in some of his followers. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we should become Sufis. Really.
if I was to ask you a question, why should we not become Sufis?
Now you say. I don't see it as. I actually don't see it as necessary.
There's a reason I ask you that question, because when you, even yourself, for example, I sense when you say that,
Yeah.
that there is this same kind of, oh, but I'm not saying that we want to become Sufis.
No,
do you
'cause
see what I'm saying? Like,
No, I'm
because
anticipating being misunderstood because
this is it.
because that's not that I feel I need to say that, but
Yeah.
it's just I'm heading off. Paul's saying we should become Sufis. I'm not saying that,
Exactly.
and I'm not. I entered into Islam through a Sufi kind of perspective, actually, but I no longer feel the need to identify that way at all because
Yes.
I think it's superfluous.
Yeah.
Oh, I just say it's necessary. But we're Muslims. We're not Sufis.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If someone wants to call themselves that, I mean, who cares? But it's it's the quality of the faith that matters.
Yeah. But obviously, with all of the things that we do, I'm sure, and this is one of the things that you've expressed already in this podcast, and it was one of the missions of Ibn Taymiyyah as well, is going back to the early traditions, going back to the Quran, the Sunnah, and making
Exactly.
sure everything we do is in light of that.
Yeah.
Whether it be in light of our dhikr, like Ibn Taymiyyah, as is mentioned about him, that he would do dhikr for many hours during the morning, right? Which, and I think perhaps this is one of the points that you're alluding to, many of those who nowadays would associate themselves with Ibn Taymiyyah, we don't see them doing that. Right? We don't have that perception of them that they would stay up after Fajr until Dhuhr and do dhikr and say, this is my breakfast. If I don't have my breakfast, then I can't function in a proper way, right? We don't have that attitude, and that is an attitude that needs to be brought back. And I personally do think as well, I mean, growing up, coming from that type of background, I feel like a Ahlul Hadith, kind of Salafi background, Athari background, I do believe that we need to improve on that front, just generally,
Absolutely.
as people, as an ummah, on the spirituality front,
Absolutely right.
reciting the Quran much more, doing dhikr much more of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many a times, for example, people will get themselves involved in back and forths and debates when they're not even ready for those things. And if you look at their spiritual state, it's not in a good place.
No.
And that's not
No,
in a good,
you're right,
that's not a good
absolutely right.
situation to be in.
No, this needs to be said. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
said it.
Changing the topic a little bit, moving on from Syria and Ibn Taymiyyah and all of this topic, Sufism. It is no secret what is happening right now in Britain with the far right. There is a specific narrative that is on our TV screens. We go on X. We see this narrative being pushed by specific individuals. And especially now we're even seeing very influential people, like Elon Musk and others getting involved in this type of narrative. And obviously this has its effects on the UK. One of the things that we've seen is a very, very Islamophobia increase. Just to say it bluntly, we've seen Islamophobia increase, Islamophobic rhetoric increase, I would say within the last year or so.
Yeah.
And we have seen, as a result, people having very specific perceptions of Muslims, perceptions on immigration. as someone who comes from this background, as someone who is visibly, a white person living in Britain, right?
More pink than white, but yeah.
But you come from, if I'm correct to say, a middle class background, right?
Don't know where you got that idea from.
Your accent is, mashallah, I'm joking. No, but like,
Carry on. It's good to be pigeonholed occasionally. Yeah.
we are all victims of it. So sometimes we also want you to feel it as well. I'm only joking, I'm playing. But as someone who comes from this background, you live in the UK. What's your kind of perception on this? What's your take on what's happening?
I'm horrified. Actually, it's based on kind of a vicious ignorance about Islam. And a hostility towards people who are lawfully here, be they from an immigrant background or not, people who are welcomed here, invited here since the Second World War, particularly. So I think it's horrible, actually. You say it's not a secret what's going on. I think there are secrets. I think there are forces behind this. Well, perhaps not so secret, really, from the Middle East, shall we say, who are hoping that this will all be intending that this would be a big distraction from certain things that are happening in Palestine, for example. So let's demonize some Muslims, rather than let's take the heat off what's going on in Palestine, and let's whip up some hatred towards Muslims. So I think this has been orchestrated, is what I'm trying to say, because the way it's happened in so many different ways and platforms at the same time suggests to me that this has been orchestrated.
I think that's very clear.
Yeah, I think the timing of it, the ubiquity of it, the multiple platforms, it looks contrived.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not real, because it really is having an effect, unfortunately. So this explains to some extent why the hell is happening now. Well, because it's been produced to happen now, but there are reasons why, and that's what we need to ask. Why is this happening now?
Yeah, for sure. In regards to Islam and Britain, of course, yourself being a very you're one of the du'at, mashallah, you give da'wah. And one of the things I like about your da'wah is that you've kind of embraced who you are and you've personified your da'wah, right? Your da'wah, I feel, represents some of the things that you yourself are interested in. You interview many academics, for example. You speak about different books, etc. I think that's also a very, very lovely thing about your da'wah. As someone who is also a Muslim, of course, witnessing all of this, what are your opinions of the future of Islam in Britain? I know it's a massive question. I mean,
I think, as far as I'm concerned, I'm really optimistic, actually. Facts on the ground are amazing. We have a growing and very committed Muslim youth population in London, in Birmingham, and Leicester, and other places I've seen. And I didn't expect to see it before I went to it. I thought, well, because I'm used to Christians declining and leaving churches, but it's the other way around. Each generation is producing even more committed people. In Britain, and it's not just here. I found it's the same in Sweden and other places, in Germany and so on. So I'm and that fundamental I'm very optimistic. People are taking faith very seriously in large numbers. They're not being the secularization hypothesis that as people move here, they become accustomed to secular British ways, and the faith becomes less and less important. And none of this has happened really, particularly with Muslims. Anyway, it happened pretty much with everyone else, but not with Muslims. So I'm optimistic in that sense.
So despite like all of these things that we're seeing,
it's almost because of it. There is a relationship, because I think in our society, in Britain, like in the West generally, you either practice your faith or your faith dies. You can't just coast along, on the traditions of your forefathers. Well, you could for about 5 minutes, and then that's going to disappear, and then you're going to be out in the cold. And what are you going to do with all these pressures? So there's a dialectical relationship between the two. Actually, they're not unrelated. That a bit of persecution can actually make one more robust. A bit of pressure. I mean, it's not to say we should welcome this, but it is nevertheless having some kind of, you have to survive and you have to practice or you cease to be.
I think we just think a fact of life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when we look at one of the things I find bizarre about some of the narratives that we're seeing recently is there is this also attempt to identify of some of these individuals from the far right to identify themselves with Christianity. Sometimes you mentioned
Tommy Robinson recently becoming Christian. Yeah.
the Crusades and the Knights Templars, and mentioning, even with some of the imagery that we're seeing, people posting photos and the type of stuff people are posting, right, from that background. The bizarre thing is that despite this, they will actually argue Britain is a Christian country and it's still a Christian country, and they will create a perception as if, every single Caucasian person walking on the street is a devout Christian. And I've actually seen videos of Christian preachers on the street preaching with microphones in city centers, let's say. And the Christians, so-called Christians, right, are actually upset at what they're doing, coming up to them, trying to stop them.
Right.
You're making noise. Why are you making all of this noise for? We're busy doing our things, and you see. So I also believe that there's a shallowness in the narrative as well. It's not accurate. It doesn't represent what's actually happening. Christianity has been on the decline in the West for many years now.
Yeah.
And we've seen that. And actually, if anything, if we put Islam to the side for a second, atheism and liberalism have actually been much more significant in these countries of recent years. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, yes and no. I think things are changing according to the surveys all over the West now, and of places like Australia as well. Particularly with young people, there is a renewed interest in faith.
Mm-hmm.
Most young people are not turned to atheism, and according to Pew, the global population that identifies as atheist is declining as a proportion. In absolute numbers, it's increasing. But as a proportion of the total population, it's going down, and it's projected to decrease still further. So self-identified atheists this is not very fashionable at the moment at all. Faith's definitely back in fashion. But I think it's possible to argue Britain's a Christian country. It's also possible to argue the opposite.
Yeah.
If I was a Christian, I could say, well, our history, our identity was Christian, which is true. Look at the past.
Of course, yeah. That, I mean, that's...
so you could identify like that as we are historically Christian nation. But you could also argue the opposite. Well, most people today no longer identify as Christians.
Yeah,
and this is the first time ever that's been the case in history, in British history. So you can argue both. That our head of state, King Charles, is also the head of the church. Yeah. So church and state are intertwined, which is the opposite of what happens in America or in France.
But don't you think this this phenomena in the UK, for example, Christianity decreasing, also shows? Perhaps...
I don't think it is. No. Sorry, I just say that I think there is what I call dead Christianity and alive Christianity.
Okay.
In the mainstream churches, like the Church of England, there's a lot of dead Christianity. It's dying. The Church of England, the parishes are emptying. People are not being ordained into the priesthood anymore.
Okay.
But there is a live Christianity, and that is growing. And there's been lots and lots of reports of that. Young people are attracted to the traditional forms of Catholicism in the Catholic Church, for example, the Latin Mass and pilgrimages and liturgy.
Is this within the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. In London, for example, Brompton Oratory, which is a very famous church in Knightsbridge in London, has very traditional, very high church indeed, has more people applying to be priests through that particular congregation than any other in London. There are definite growth areas, but there are other areas where the church is deadwood as well. Yeah. So I'm not sure yet what the balance will be. What will be the ultimate equation? I don't know. But we shouldn't just say it's dying. I think it's both. There's dead Christianity and alive Christianity.
Of course, I'm not speaking based on statistics at the moment. I'm speaking purely based on our interactions with, for example, when we're giving da'wah, sometimes when some of the brothers are giving da'wah, and based on going to university and my own personal experiences, this is a vibe that I get.
Right.
I mean, obviously that doesn't make it an objective fact, but the vibe that I get is that I do feel many people are coming to Islam, but with regards to like young people going back to Christianity, I feel like with regards to faith, that makes sense. People turning to faith, that does make sense. Because even some of the recent world events we're finding that. I mean, after Gaza happened, one of the masajid in West London, for example, they were mentioning how people were coming in every single day and becoming Muslims, right? After the Palestine issue was happening.
And during Ramadan as well, particularly.
Yeah.
No, this is true.
Were you going to mention something?
I was actually going to add to that. There was actually like a statistic saying like because of what's going on in Gaza and Palestine, they're saying like 20% of Brits have been converting to Islam and embracing Islam.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, it could be.
What do you think the responsibility of Muslims is in the UK? Do you think that we also have a responsibility when we see this narrative and we see kind of a lot of scary things, right, being said about us? Do you think we also have a responsibility? And if you do, like, what do you think?
Responsibility to what?
To respond, or like, and in what way should we respond? I mean, I know, for example, just to give you my perspective, I feel that sometimes as Muslims, we could portray ourselves much better, right? In some of the Muslim areas in London, for example, we could portray ourselves much better. I think that does make a difference. You know, for example, in East London, you know, if you were a white person, an English person, and you went to East London and you walk through the streets of Whitechapel, for example, and you didn't see the cleanest roads. I'm really just being very upfront here, right? You didn't see.
I'm glad you're saying this.
No. I mean, you don't see the cleanest roads in London. You see, you know, that the cleanliness is a bit of an issue there, and then you see, this place is all full of brown people. Right, so 1 + 1 = 2. These people need to leave my country, right?
Well, yeah, that's silly. But no, you're not saying that, of course. I mean,
obviously, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying this. I would understand.
An ignorant person could draw that conclusion.
I would understand that would happen.
Some of the cleanest places on the planet I've ever been to are Muslim countries like Qatar, you know, Doha.
Of course,
you could eat off the pavement.
That's not me saying
clean,
Muslims are dirty.
Parts of Turkey and no, I know you're not saying that, but no, it's just ignorance. No, you're right. We do have responsibility to clean. I mean, having a clean environment in the neighborhood is Islam. It's Islam 101, isn't it?
I'm saying some of the things that we do sometimes, I feel, it doesn't help the situation. You see, it doesn't help the situation.
Yeah.
I feel that like many masajid should perhaps be focusing on that a bit more. You know?
Yeah, there are lots of things we should be doing. This is true. I think one of the reasons why we're allowed to be here at all in a non-Muslim country, because we're not normally supposed to be here, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Just hanging around, you know, is dawah.
Yeah, that was one of those things.
Actually, if we're doing dawah, then we have a legitimate reason to be here. If we're not, we're just hedonistically living here, then that's not a Sharia reason for being here.
Yeah.
So exactly. Dawah is really important. Yeah, having clean streets, being good neighbours, just all these decent things that Islam inculcates is important.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Once I was, I've mentioned this before, one of the local mosques right around the corner from here. I prayed Jumu'ah and there was a lady, the masjid is on a residential street. There was a lady who was complaining about one of the brothers who's parked his motorcycle right outside her drive, therefore blocking her, right? And I made sure I actually waited for this brother to come out. I spoke with the lady. I kind of involved myself in that situation. I was very frustrated myself. And I spoke with this brother and he had a very nonchalant attitude about what he had just done, right? And these are the type of things that I'm referring to.
Of course.
If you're doing this now, if you're going to the masjid on Jummah and this lady, who is, let's say, an English lady from an English background, if she now sees you doing this and behaving like this, do you expect her to have a good opinion of the mosque? Do you expect her to
Well, it
feel?
depends. I mean, if she can rise above the, those kind of connections.
But she's a human being. Do you see? Like,
well, no, but the human beings are not all the same. Just because a person of a certain color does a certain thing doesn't mean all those people of a certain color
it doesn't.
are collected.
It
Now, you're saying
doesn't.
human beings are like that, but not all human beings are like that.
Not all of them are like that. But the
Actually.
thing is, for me as a Muslim now, when I'm dealing with people, I must understand that human beings, many of them, despite there being, uqala and nuanced human beings in the world who actually are fair, and they do think, no, all of them aren't the same. But many people out there, when they see things like this, they get emotional.
Many people think the Catholic priests are all paedophiles.
They do.
No, but
that's right.
No,
right.
But they're not.
They're not.
They're not, actually. That's my point. So saying they're not, does that matter? Well, it does matter because it's true.
It does matter.
And it means we don't malign a whole group of people because of the activities of a small minority.
Yeah.
And you can go through all sorts of categories like that and say,
Yeah.
actually, they're not all like that. They're not all like that. They're not all like that.
Of course.
Are Muslims, inclined to terrorism? Well, obviously not. But that is a trope that some people believe.
But I'm saying that if you are going to Jummah, for example, praying Jummah, and you're constantly inconveniencing the neighbors, and you expect them not to garner any negative
well,
feelings.
particularly that
about
mosque would have a bad reputation. If not all perhaps Muslims are tarnished, but that mosque would then be seen as a problem.
But this is what I'm trying to say, that I would not be surprised. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying it's valid either. I'm saying I would not be surprised now if this woman, from experiencing these type of things from Muslims, thinks,
she may do, or she may say that this particular bunch is a rotten barrel, but they're not all like that because, there are 2 billion Muslims on the planet, and I can't generalize.
But we've put ourselves in a situation there where we are relying upon her opinion.
Yeah,
we have put ourselves.
No, we must do better. I agree.
Yeah. We and that's the simple point, right? That I feel like our behavior, we also have a responsibility to reflect ourselves in a better manner. And obviously, even if we reflected ourselves in a bad manner, that doesn't justify some of the things that are being said, but it just makes our situation worse.
Oh, this is true.
That's
Yeah.
You have some books next to you.
Yes.
You regularly interview academics discussing their books. You are also a reader, mashallah, tabarakallah, right? I hope I can say that about yourself. I mean...
is this something that needs to be checked first?
No. That's my perception, but, some of the things I've said about you on the podcast...
Oh, really? No.
But, so I wanted to discuss reading with you.
Okay.
Reading is one of the topics that I've also had friends sometimes come up to me, different people. They'll come up to you sometimes and they'll say, I need some reading tips. I struggle to read. I feel like social media has also made it very difficult for people to read, right? Once again, like the TikTok generation, Instagram Reels, constantly getting dopamine hits from their screens. And then they find it difficult to sit down for a prolonged period of time doing a focused task, focused task.
A real issue. Yeah.
It's a real problem. It's a very, very real issue. So, first of all, maybe like we can begin it with this. Do you have any tips for people who want to get into reading? Just reading as a general thing, right?
Well, why do people read books at all? I mean, I've never had to encourage myself to read particularly because it's part of the air I breathe. Are we curious about life?
Yeah.
Then books are an excellent way of discovering more about life, whether it be any subject, biology or astrophysics or literature or theology or philosophy or whatever. Books are the best way of getting into that subject. So why wouldn't one read is the question I have. But I appreciate there are problems, and I've had to adopt new strategies because I'm on social media to cordon off social media and focus on reading. I've actually had to do that deliberately. So one of the things I do is, because we're in London, I literally go on the tube. The Elizabethan line is pretty good because it goes all the way across London, and a lot of it's actually on the outside, when you can countryside. Anyway, so just me and my book.
So you don't actually have a destination, like
correct. Well,
Wow.
destination ultimate is to come home, but that's about it. So I don't get off. Well, I do get off because I have to come back again. This is the trick. No, but seriously, I find, or going on a bus, I've done that, but it's less good because buses are less comfortable. They're more kind of bumpy, I've discovered.
And you
I
may
don't
have to
normally
avoid-
go on buses, you see.
You have to avoid getting stabbed as well.
Well, really, I didn't know that. But the thing about this is, so I have a particular book and I go on the tube for an hour or so.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing else to do, and I put my ear pods in because otherwise you hear the same bloody messages all the time,
Yeah.
you know. And I just read, and it's great. There are no distractions really, or distractions. There are distractions I can really handle easily. You know, there's no. I mean, I could reach in my pocket and get my phone out, but I don't. I just read.
Yeah.
So that's one way of physically leaving my place, stepping away from the computer, and with just a book, and it works for me. So people go to a park. Not you can do that now, but you know, finding strategies where you walk away from computers
Okay.
and just get alone with the book, and it works. And at least it does for me anyway.
Okay. And like for someone who's like, if I can ask, like, how long have you been reading for? Would it, like, let's say consistently, actually like being in a habit, enjoying it.
I was a late starter. I think when it was in my early teens before it really hit me big. Before that, I didn't read,
Okay.
so I was quite a late starter. But once I discovered it, that was it. I've never, when I discovered philosophy actually, and this wasn't at school. It was my experience with school was not good. So what education? Well, not only it there, but a lot of my education came from my own reading. Actually, it was nothing to do with school.
Yes.
So when I discovered philosophy
Yes.
in my mid-teens, that was something that I've never stopped reading. So
Okay.
I mean Plato, particularly his dialogues.
Yes.
So reading about Socrates,
Yes.
because these are conversations that people were having 2,500 years ago about really important matters. You know,
Yeah.
about life, the universe, and everything.
What do you think of the Republic?
Yeah, I've read it twice. Brilliant, fantastic.
Yeah.
Very long. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these books are still read by Ivy League students in the States today. People are going to be rulers one day
Yeah.
because it's about politics
Yeah,
amongst
yeah.
many other things.
Yeah.
And this was written 2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
But Plato wasn't just one of the greatest philosophers that ever lived. He was also a brilliant artisan, a dramatist, a writer.
I bought it recently. That's why I asked
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I mean,
So he's very readable, you know,
Yeah.
and I say he's thousands of years old, you know, and he's influenced Plato, his influence, and Socrates and his pupil Aristotle have influenced mankind incalculably.
yeah, for sure.
And so, if you want to understand the world around us, the ideologies and the political philosophies, understanding Plato and Aristotle is still very, very important.
yeah.
So
for sure.
why not read them? What's the fuss about? Go and read, you know. Or Machiavelli's The Prince.
Yes.
And Machiavelli, this kind of Renaissance guy who almost gave us the playbook of how to exercise power,
Yeah,
political power,
Yeah.
and how to keep it.
Yeah.
And it's completely real politique. You know,
Oh, and
there's
you've
no
actually
crap
had-
about being nice to people.
Yeah.
And it's a short book, but read it because everyone else has read it. Our rulers, Tony Blair really liked it. He's on TV saying he really liked it. So what influenced Tony Blair? This did.
Well, this is what this is what I was saying. I mean, multiple world leaders. No, I don't want to mention names, right?
Oh, go on.
But they've mentioned, like, we read the Prince and really liked
It's not
the
long,
Prince.
but it's not difficult to read.
No, I think it's less than 100 pages.
Yeah. So, and it's also, I like to see reading as a bit of a time machine.
Mm.
You want to go back in time and inhabit in your mind a world and a worldview that people had many centuries ago.
Mm.
Nothing beats reading books. You know, I could list a whole bunch of stuff, but
So I think we actually have the perfect person, mashallah, to have this conversation with. So like, because you have been doing this for many years now. So look, let's
well,
say...
a lot of people have actually. There's a lot of people.
Of course.
It's
No,
not-
I know.
I'm not unusual.
No, of course. There are a lot of people who've been reading for many
Yeah.
years. But the thing is, I mean, you say that there are a lot of people.
Everyone
but
I
for
know
example,
reads books. I mean, literally.
But you see... shall
Literally,
I...
everyone I know reads books.
So for me, there are many people that I know. I'm not going to say everyone I know because there are people I know who do read books and stuff like that. But many people I know, many friends I have, they don't read books.
Really?
They do not read books.
Amazing.
Some of them may have never even finished a book in their life.
Really?
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like my generation have really lost. Like I feel like my father's generation were readers much more. And I was speaking to one of my teachers about this actually, who was also from my father's generation, and he was mentioning to me that, I mean, in our day, because he's mentioning to us, I finished this book in like a week, and I finished this 5-volume book in 10 days or something, and we're looking at him surprised, and he's saying, well, you know, in our day, we didn't really have any alternative to this. Reading was in a way.
No, but you did. Even when I was a kid, you had television.
But do you feel like it was as much of a temptation?
Yeah.
As it is now.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I haven't watched television for years, but to be honest, I have tried. I just find it so boring.
I feel like our generation has it worse.
No, because it's not just television; it's all the other platforms.
It's everything
as well.
else.
But television was a diversion. It's not like we were just looking at trees.
Of course.
I mean, there were temptations.
Yeah.
But there's much more now.
Of course. Yeah. I feel like now today's generation, it's much harder to find people who
it's your generation. Excuse me, we're all living at this time, not just your generation.
Yeah, sorry.
We're all living now. You know, I feel the pressure as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is to have strategies to counter it.
Yeah,
so I physically leave my place.
Yeah.
And
so this is what I wanted to ask you. For like
Yeah.
someone who, let's say, has lived like, let's say 20 years of their life, 24 years of their life, 25 years of their life, and they haven't read a book. They haven't been
didn't
into
they go
reading.
to school?
I mean,
what are schools teaching people? I don't understand. How can you go to school and not have read a book? I don't get it.
I think you'd be surprised, you know.
I would be.
I think honestly, you'd be surprised. Like when I say they,
this is in England we're talking about, and not in some place where there are no schools at all.
No. But like,
Okay.
maybe I should qualify some of the things that I'm saying. Like when I say read a book, I mean, let's say like a book, like some of the books you have here, or like an actual.
Yeah.
Gone to the bookshop, gone to Waterstones or Foyles or one of the bookshops, and picked up a book
No,
and said, "I'm going to actually read this."
Okay, I'm going to say something elitist, and I'd probably get shot down, but I'm not entirely sure I'm wrong. I think reading is a minority activity anyway. Actually, and within the book reading
that's what it is.
community, a lot of people do read, you know, what I call sort of airport paperbacks. You know, stuff that I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. I've tried, but it really was awful stuff.
Yeah.
I think those who read good literature are going to be a minority anyway, and that's cool. Why should everyone read Shakespeare?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe everyone should read Shakespeare, but it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain interest and a certain ability, but even patience, a certain desire. You have to have certain qualities to even read Hamlet or read Antony Cleopatra or read whatever. I'm fortunate because of my background and so on that I do have that. But then my sister doesn't. She had the same background. She's never read a book in her life, as far as I can see. But that's her. But so it's not inevitable.
But that's what I'm saying. So like there are many people like that.
No, but I'm saying that we shouldn't necessarily feel too bad about that in terms of numbers. But for those who do want to read, it's still a big challenge, and that's where we're addressing that.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think there are strategies.
Because many of my friends, for
Yeah.
example, let's say, who are not readers, many of the brothers that I know who are not readers, they want to be readers. They actually would like to be. So if someone would like to be a reader, what are some practical tips? And we're not talking about
read
like,
what though? I mean,
this is the thing.
it's
Like, what would you say to them? Like,
well, it depends. I mean, I'm not going to read books about cooking or football or flower arranging. I'm sorry, I'm just not ever.
yeah, of course,
Ever.
of course.
But I'm
There are
just not,
specific books we
because,
choose. Yeah.
because there are different subjects. So you know, if you, it's difficult. I mean, one of the books I'm reading at the moment is this one called. It's one of the many translations. This one's called War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. And you know, a lot of people think this is the greatest novel ever written by a Russian guy in the 19th century. Why do I read this book? It's like saying, why do I do anything? Because it's worthwhile, it's enjoyable, it's enriching. It's a way into another universe, which is its own reason. You know, it's not like reading this, I will accomplish something or has any utilitarian purpose. It doesn't.
Yeah.
The book is the purpose in itself.
Yeah.
And how do we communicate that to people who've not read it? I don't know. All I can say is go on a voyage of discovery and find out for yourself. If you don't want to take that voyage of discovery, that's fine. No one's going to think any worse of you.
Yeah, of course.
It's not like a sin.
Yeah.
But if you do undertake this incredible voyage, you will discover worlds which you didn't realize existed. And you will enter into in this case, Leo Tolstoy is an extraordinary writer into a consciousness which certainly helps to elevate the reader. His understanding of human psychology and motivation, relationships, is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So the purpose of reading is reading in that sense. But I can't persuade someone that that they must do it. They must have a go and sample it for themselves. And if they don't like it, then there's nothing I can do. Nothing any of us can do.
So do you think someone can make themselves? Because look, I'm sure there's a large percentage of people out there who they don't like the act of reading,
What is the act of reading?
like actually sitting down and reading, but they like the result that they get from it.
Well, you could read in all sorts of places.
You see, it's like
you see-
people who say, I don't enjoy going to the gym, but I go to the gym because of the result it gives me.
Well, that's different.
Right.
That's doing it. Yeah, I don't enjoy brushing my teeth
For example.
ever,
Right?
but
Yeah.
but I always do it because it has a very serious purpose.
Yeah.
If I was reading, say, War and Peace, I'm only doing it for the purpose of reading War and Peace, not because I will become any objective beyond that.
Yeah.
It is a thing in itself, and maybe it's because it lacks that kind of, purposeful benefit beyond simply the reading. Okay, it will make you more articulate. If you want practical, it would increase your vocabulary.
Yes.
You'll become more educated. You will have a perhaps a broader understanding and deeper understanding of many things in life. These are benefits, but they're side effects. They're not the reason why I read that.
Let me ask you questions to do with some practical things to do with reading. Like, so for example, if someone wants to get into it, should they set a daily time, or should they set a daily amount? In your opinion?
Yeah, no, there are as many strategies as there are people. Yeah, that could be a really good idea, actually. For example, when whatever strategy works for you.
For you, okay.
So I think for me, what happens is often with a novel, when I start, for example, if I'm reading Dostoevsky, I've read Dostoevsky, the great Russian novelist.
Yes.
So he's written Crime and Punishment and The Brothers Karamazov and The Idiots, etc. Always the case. When I start reading his book, it's hard work. All these Russian names and an unfamiliar landscape, and it's set in Russia in the 19th century.
Yeah.
I've never been to Russia in the 19th century. I don't know about you, but I've never been there. No. That was a joke. But what always happens is after a certain point it catches fire.
Yeah.
It catches fire, and I no longer have to exert labor to read it, which I always do at the beginning because it's an unfamiliar. As soon as it catches fire, the thing just carries me through, and I just read it. I just find any excuse just to find out what's happening. And I found that with Charles Dickens as well, and George Eliot, another famous English novelist, and with Tolstoy now. Is that moment I'm always waiting for when suddenly it suddenly becomes compelling, and I've got to continue.
Okay.
So yeah, it can be hard work at the beginning, particularly with great novelists. But some writers like Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I think it's probably pretty easy right from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's not that demanding intellectually, but a great read. No. So they could start with something easier like that. And that also catches fire. Once you get involved with the characters and the plot, you don't want to put it down.
Okay.
If that never happens for someone, then maybe reading's not for them. I don't know.
Yeah. But this is the thing. I
What
feel
can
like
say? It's like swimming. Is swimming great? Well, no, I don't like getting wet. Okay, maybe swimming's not for you.
I feel like there's a large amount of people, though. I mean, they read, and they are actually readers because of what they get out of it.
Well, let me give you another book. It's a much more controversial book. Why am I reading this book?
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
It's Understanding Salafism, Seeking the Path of the Pious Predecessors by someone called Yasser Qadi. I know you're a big fan. And so why am I reading this book? Because, there's several reasons. One, this is his first ever academic book. He says so in the introduction.
Yeah.
It's published by One World Academic. And I'm really interested in Salafism, actually. Okay. And this, judging by the reviews on the back from people like John Hoover, who's an author of the famous book on Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, he says it's a true gem. It's an outstanding work. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I'm interested in Salafism.
Yeah.
That's why I'm reading it. Now, it doesn't make me a slave of the author. It means I'm reading a book that purports to be a serious academic work
Yeah.
and will be judged on on those criteria.
Yeah.
And the reviews I've read so far from a very diverse bunch of academics, they think of this very highly.
Mhm.
And I've learned a lot about Salafism. Its sheer range and diversity. It's not like a single thing like the S pubs in Birmingham. It's much broader than that.
Yeah.
And the deep intellectual roots and how it's developed and changed over the centuries, and without going into all the details. So this is why am I reading this book? Because I'm interested in the subject, and this meets the need at this moment.
Yes.
So that's why.
Mhm.
If you're not interested in Salafism, you're not going to read that,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you want to say something about the book too?
No. I mean, I mean, if you're gonna push me in the direction, yeah.
I'm pushing. No, I'm not. It's you. No.
No, I mean, look, obviously, I haven't read the book, so I'm not going to have an opinion on the book. I haven't read the book. As for opinions on the author, you know, I find it difficult to detach some of the controversies surrounding him,
Of course.
from his work. I find that difficult, especially not on a personal level, but on a social level. I mean, like in terms of recommending his work, etc., and stuff like that. That is a concern that I have, and that's just me speaking very openly
this is fine.
on the
you're entitled
podcast,
to have that view.
right?
Yeah.
But as you know, when it comes to like reading academic works, etc., and whatnot, yeah, I mean, we read academic works. We read. I mean, we're talking about Plato and everything. We don't agree with everything
No.
Plato believed in, right, etc. But this is the thing. Like, I believe, you know, when someone expands their reading, because what happens with some people. And I believe that as a Muslim, now I'm speaking as a Muslim, like, and giving advice to Muslims, a person should have their foundations. You should know what you believe. You should have your foundational ideas solidified. You should know what you believe as a Muslim. You should know what your creed is, etc.
Yeah.
Before going and exploring other creeds. However, you know, the exploration route, when someone takes the exploration route in the beginning and they don't have their own foundations, that's when a person will end up confused, right?
I do this book. Well, this is an academic book.
No, I'm
It's-
speaking generally.
Yeah, this is not.
I'm not
gonna-
speaking about that book.
This is not for the general public. I don't think.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, I assume the type of people who are going to read this book are people who already have their opinions on the book, or on not on the book, but on the topic. Let's say.
But inevitably, people are going to have their opinions. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
also helped me, on a slightly different point, understand Yasser Qadhi as an intellectual better, because he does call himself post-Salafi. Now I understand what he means by that now, and I don't identify with that label myself at all. But he does, and I can understand better where he's coming from now.
Yeah.
Actually, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anyone else should follow that path, although you
Yeah.
would probably like it.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, for example, when someone has a foundation, because I've come across people before that, for example, you'll speak with them, and because they didn't set their foundations from the get-go, and they straight away threw themselves into the deep end, reading about different views and stuff like that, they find it difficult to sometimes understand what they actually believe.
Yeah.
You see? So I feel like there's an order to things. Like, I would not start...
Sit up, please.
Okay, we'll do this again.
No, it's just me, I think.
Okay. I mean,
both of us.
like, for example, I wouldn't start reading other books and books of those who, for example, let's say, disagree with, let's say, Athari Aqidah, for example.
No, this is
until I understand what
of
Athari
course.
Aqidah
No,
is.
this is advanced stuff. One should have a clear idea. One must understand the basics. I mean, you've got to understand the basics of Islam before you even go, discussing Salafism.
It's a niche book, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, of course. But but people come at subjects at different levels. But I agree. People should be basically grounded. I think someone who didn't understand the basics of Islam wouldn't really understand a lot of this book anyway, because he wouldn't understand what the fuss was about.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, One World Academic, I like their publications. I've got a couple of their books.
Yeah.
I got one on, the most recent one I got was on Ibn Asakir, who actually wrote that book there.
Okay.
Tarikh Dimashq. It's around 80 volumes or so. probably the most extensive history of Damascus.
Ooh,
Ibn Asakir.
that sounds juicy.
Yeah, so they've got one on him as well by a scholar. I think is a female scholar who wrote his biography.
I just remember, by the way, in my defence.
No, I mean,
No. I feel I need to defend myself because I'm under a vicious attack. No, I'm only joking. I didn't buy this. The publisher, the director of One World Academics, sent this to me out of the blue
that's very
in the post.
okay.
That's how I know about it. Or I knew about it existed, but it just suddenly arrived in the post one day. And he's not a Muslim or anything. And I was very chuffed. And he didn't actually say why he sent it to me either. So I'm thinking, what's he? Okay, he wants me to interview Yasser Qadhi, which is fine. So I didn't go out my way to purchase this book. I was given it as a gift.
How much is it sold for? Out of curiosity, I'm just wondering.
Good question. £35 in the UK.
Yeah, so that's yes.
Which is not bad for academic books. That's cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have.
So yeah.
So with regards to you had the third book there as well. What did you want to speak about that?
No, I was going to quote from this book by Abdul Hakim Murad or Tim Winters, but the page has actually fallen out of the book. It was about whether or not Muslims. There's a certain perspective on why Muslims do belong in the West, but he expressed it with such eloquence and beauty, as he always does.
He's very eloquent, yeah.
That I was going to read out the passage, but I think it must have fallen out in my home, unfortunately. So I'm not going to read it out now.
Amazing. With regards to reading,
yes,
I kind of I wanna get a little bit more out of you if I can.
Squeeze more juice.
I want to get a little bit more out of you on this topic, for aspiring readers and people who want to expand some of the things. Would you say a person should begin, because there are certain books a person reads to educate themselves more, right? And there are certain books a person reads for enjoyment.
Yeah.
So one of the advices I've heard before, for example, is that a person should start reading books that they enjoy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
to build a habit.
Some people never read novels; they just read politics, or they read economics, or they read just theology or whatever.
Yeah.
So read whatever floats your boat. Basically, don't force yourself to read stuff you're not going to be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You may ultimately decide to venture out into new fields of whatever.
Yeah.
But read what's interesting. Maybe interested in politics, the politics of Syria or something. Go and read about it.
Yeah.
Just go where your interest lies. If you're a serious reader of that book, you will then read other books, and it will, fan out basically.
Yeah. Jazakumullah khairan. I mean, what the last thing I wanted to ask you about is what you're up to nowadays.
Well, I'm talking to you really, but I mean more generally.
Yeah, more generally, like what's going on in your life and what's happening with you.
Gosh, that's a leading question.
Yeah, because I mean the people, I
was talking to about this earlier on. I'm definitely going to be upgrading my camera and my audio equipment.
Okay,
I know, it's rather a long time coming. So I'm in active discussions with people about what equipment to get, how it's going to be tailored to my particular requirements at home, etc.
Nice.
So that's a project in the next week or so that will begin to produce fruit. So,
yes.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. And the YouTube channel, like what your kind of
I'm wanting to focus on BT much more on high-end academic discussions with leading academics from Oxbridge and so on. I want that to happen. I'm also talking with Hassan Spiker, the Cambridge philosopher, who's a good friend of mine, about doing he and I teaming up and debating high-end scholars from like Christians, for example. So it'd be two teams, me and Hassan, and two others, but at a different kind of level than Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, of course.
So hopefully we'll do it with a dab and so on, but there will be some genuine kind of discussion and some, actual meat there as well. So we're exploring who we might talk to about that. We've got some names. I think it's not really been done before. We have these kind of two teams, a Muslim team and a Christian team or a Mormon team or an atheist team, having high-end debates like that. So we're in talks about that at the moment.
Okay.
But I also want to do much more, because I've done too many interviews in the last year. I want to do my own stuff much more.
Yes.
My own podcast where I'm talking about current affairs or books or politics or
Nice.
ranting about Tucker Carlson or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing.
I saw you have
it's
a new
shift.
A new podcast that you've been posting on your channel as well, with a couple of other brothers as well.
Zishan from Smile to Jannah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Thursdays we do a podcast together in South London.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, that's kind of a rolling thing.
Oh, that's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, indefinitely. Yeah, as long as it kind of works, we'll do that. If there are 4 of us, or 3 or 4 of us, who
Very nice.
get around a table and we talk about various things. So we're talking about, the signs of the end on this Thursday, about the hadith and so on. We've got an expert coming in, a brother who's going to talk about that to us as well.
Very nice. MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
Yeah.
We've been going for some time.
Yes.
hours.
Yeah.
I would really like to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's
great
been
honor
an
and a
absolute
pleasure.
Hopefully, we can have you on again, maybe for a
Inshallah.
more focused topic. It'll be very, very nice to do that.
Sure.
I know we tried to cover various topics in one podcast.
Yeah.
I am, by the way, realizing that I feel like we need to start maybe doing podcasts on an individual topic, so that we can take more out of that topic. So we'd love to have you back again, inshallah ta'ala, if your schedule allows for it. And
if it's you, my schedule will certainly allow for it.
thank you so much. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you so much for coming. Jazakumullahu khairan. Would you like to say any last things to the audience, or?
No, I'm glad I survived the interview, and I look forward to the next time, inshallah.
Jazakumullahu khairan, brothers and sisters, for listening and watching the podcast. You can listen to the podcast. You can stream it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we will see you in the next episode. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.